So, conclusions. I tend to be of the keep it as cheap as possible philosophy because that way, I mean, if you're doing a single thing like a mile and a half train ride or however much, quarter of a mile or three-quarters of a mile, whatever it is, if you keep the prices low, you'll have let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. And to me, that's more beneficial than one trip. One trip, that's it, and you get you know, say $30, $40 a head. I'd rather have it, at $8, $10, so long as I'm not losing money and get the people in again and again and again. Um, that was the philosophy of this one group is it's something you can do after work, after school, take the kids there on a weekday and ride the train. And for that group, it manifested wonderfully because it was something relatively nearby. It was a smaller community outside of a larger city, about 30 minutes distant. And so you could literally just hop in the car, get there, ride the train a couple of times, and go back home and have dinner and not worry about it. Especially on you know late spring and early fall days when the days are so long, the kids are wound up. Yeah, take them there, let them have some fun, let them ride the train, happy, happy. They shut up for a while, and it doesn't cost you a fortune. And so for that organization, it worked wonderfully. But again, each organization has to play it as they see it and with the cards that they're dealt. With the location, with the equipment, with the overhead that they're going to have for that particular facility, for that particular setup, it's all going to vary. So my personal philosophy, like I said, is more towards the keep it cheap so you can do it again and again and again. But that's just a personal concept. Other people will go, well, if I can get $10, why don't I get 12 or 15? Because the nearest amusement competitor is charging 23. Okay, fine. I mean, that's an argument. That's not something that you can just cast aside easily. But with all due respect to the opposite end of the spectrum of try to get as much as you can, the Laffer curve is a actual thing. Um, this gets into economics, but the Laffer curve basically says the higher the price point, the fewer the customers, and this is how it goes. So you'll have a dip in revenue after a certain point simply because people will be going, nah, that's too much. And this does have an astonishing effect, especially on um, museums and nonprofit enterprises that are both employee and volunteer run, is because the lower your revenue drops off at the higher price point, the more you're going to have to rely on the volunteers to pick up the slack in operations and maintenance and everything else. And that gets to be a very interesting conundrum, especially when your volunteers go, why am I giving you my time when you just listed that you got $3 million this year or whatever pricing amount? So it is an interesting conundrum to have for any organization. um, this is especially at the fore in railroad museums because most people don't take into consideration the kind of expenses that are actually involved in restoring a locomotive. You're talking, $2 or $3 million for a single steam locomotive to bring it back to operation. Um, that's on about average, but it depends on just how bad of condition and just what sort of repairs is necessary. And people are going, well, how can you ever do that? Well, it's not too challenging, but then again, they assume railroads have money. Oh, you're making all this money. Well, it also goes out the door for the employees and for the fuel, for the property taxes, and for everything else. Not property taxes if you have a 501c3, but there's various other issues that will arise, especially um, if you're operating vintage equipment, because the maintenance, it's not just buy a part at Napa. It's I have to make this part or I have to modify something I did buy at Napa. Pardon me, my voice is going out again. But there is going to be some consideration as far as price is concerned because in 1988, I think I was working for like $4 or $5 an hour for minimum wage at that point. Um, or I should say that minimum wage was $4 or $5 an hour. I can't remember what I was working for in 1988. But it was, uh, to give you an example, my actually no, I can remember. It was $2.85 an hour, and we got a raise up to 3.13. Oh my word! Yes, I am that old, but it is a consideration, and the dollar doesn't go as far as it did, you know, 20 years ago or 25 years ago. Well, 26 now, let alone, you know, 30, 40 years ago. So how do you account for all that? There's all these rotating factors. There's all this matter of, well, what do you do? And for me, one of the biggest considerations is how do I make this thing keep going forward? And drawing young people in, having it economically advantageous for families to draw young people in, to go, yeah, I'll ride the train. That is an advantage that is not just economic, that's in longevity as well. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. Um, you have some people that are the younger people on YouTube, like Mark Huber with Heist, or Lawrence Rose is younger than me too, that are bringing this interesting world to a whole new generation. I mean, I predate the internet, so there you go. Um, but it's one thing to see it on a screen. It's another thing to see it up close and in person. And the more young people, the more people from, like, say, ages of 5 to 12, that you get to actually touch the equipment, to see it up close and personal. That's where those memories are founded in. I mean, people like Lawrence Rose, like Mark Huber, any of the railroad people on YouTube will will agree with that. Is that these formative years, when you start actually doing things on your own, when you start investigating the world as you see it, is when these interests are made, are created. And to have it as just a, a concept that, grandpa goes out and does this once a year, twice a year, pardon me, or it's an occasional thing, that also offers a disservice to the youth of today and tomorrow, and plays very heavily into the fact of decreasing volunteerism, because the people that did grow up with, uh, as I used to say, is touching the steel and pulling the wheel. The people that did grow up with that are dying off. I mean, once I was one of the youngest people that knew how to operate a steam locomotive. I'm far from young now, but it's something that only happens when it's allowed to, when you bring the child into the steam hobby, when you bring them into railroading, when they see it more than once a year, more than twice a year. It's not something you do when you go visit grandpa once in the summer. It's something that they can see 6 or 7 times in the year. They will start showing up as a teenager going, what can I do? How can I help? Will you let me? And if the answer is yes, then you have a volunteer for life. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. Complain as you want to in the comments. Yes, these are all just my opinions, but you can understand how they're founded based on what I've just discussed. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good day, folks. And if you do enjoy these stories and commentary, like, share, and subscribe. And see you all next time.